Listen to this basic phrase and think about this. Where do you think beat 1 is in this melody? In other words, where is the downbeat in this phrase? What do you think the tempo is? How would you tap your foot to this? Well, it turns out that there are actually a lot of different answers to those questions, and all of them are valid. So let's break it down in today's video. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Nate Comp from Dimecast, and in today's video, we're going to explore an idea that I like to call "you heard that wrong." This is a concept that I deal with all of the time when I'm working with my private students, and it begins with the following observations. There are many ways to hear and experience various forms of musical behavior, whether they are melodic or harmonic or rhythmic. And there will be times when you are trying to learn a song or a piece of music and you can't quite get it together, not because of a lack of skill or ability, but because you're not hearing it the right way. If you want to develop a high-definition ear, you need to practice the process of constantly changing your listening perspective so that you can hear and experience even the simplest forms of musical behavior in many different ways. And in this video, I'm going to show you a few basic ways to get started with this concept, focusing primarily on the idea of changing your rhythmic perspective. And then at the end of the lesson, I'll share a few extra examples that are a little more challenging, so definitely stick around for that. All right, let's jump right into it. As listeners, we love to hear patterns in music. Pattern recognition is something that is hardwired into our brains as human beings. So, of course, this concept applies to how we experience music. Our ears and our emotions are always searching for a sense of intentional design or logical construction when it comes to experiencing various forms of musical behavior, okay? Now, with that being said, how many of you heard the simple melody that I was playing earlier as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, okay? That is a very common interpretation, especially if I take that melody using my looper, okay, and I put it into context with a chord progression. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay? You might also hear this melody at half of the tempo as eighth notes. So that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? Both of those interpretations are extremely common. Now, because I started off playing the example melody with no accompaniment and no sense of context, you kind of had to make some assumptions as a listener about where the downbeat was and also what the tempo and the timing were. For me, the mind-blowing part is that whatever conclusion you came to about how you hear this phrase, you are right. The catch is that now you need to learn how to change your listening perspective so that you can hear and experience this same melody in other ways besides just the one that you've already figured out. The first real challenge when it comes to changing your listening perspective is the fact that your ear is biased towards hearing the first note of a melodic phrase as falling on the downbeat of the measure. In other words, your ear is biased towards hearing melodic phrases as always beginning on beat 1. Now, sometimes the instinct to hear things this way is accurate, but there are many times when your initial instincts might be wrong, and then you end up hearing things wrong. So let's take a look at some examples using the basic melody that we've already established. For the first group of variations when it comes to changing our rhythmic perspective, we're going to keep the values of these notes the same, but we're going to use rhythmic displacement to change where in the measure we actually hear this phrase, okay? Let's say we're using quarter notes, okay? Let's say you originally heard this phrase as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, which once again with chord accompaniment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. We still want to hear this phrase as quarter notes, but we want to shift where it is in the bar. So what if I told you that the first note C was actually a pickup note, okay? It was actually beat 4, and this is beat 1. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, we want to train our ear to hear this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, you can displace it even further by using the notes C and B as 2 pickup notes on beats 3 and 4, which puts the note A on beat 1. So once again, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, what if we heard it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And finally, if we hear C, B, and A as pickup notes on beats 2, 3, 4, that puts the note B on beat 1. So once again, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, if we change our perspective as far as listening, and we hear this melody now as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's all the same melodic behavior, but using rhythmic displacement changes how you hear the phrase in context with the underlying pulse and count. You can also do this with eighth notes, right? If you initially heard the phrase as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and as eighth notes, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. We can displace 1/8 note at a time. If I said that this was the and of beat 4 and this is beat 1, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, okay? What if this was 4 and pickup notes into the note A being beat 1? So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And finally, what if it was 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, where the note B is beat 1, okay? So 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So every one of these is the same melodic behavior, C to B to A to B, but rhythmic displacement helps you hear this phrase in a different environment and in a different context. The second challenge when it comes to changing your listening perspective is the fact that any melody that is played unaccompanied or a cappella has an implied rhythmic structure. In other words, your ear is biased towards organizing the rhythmic behavior of an unaccompanied melody in the simplest way possible. Okay, this goes back to what I said earlier about pattern recognition and the desire for our ears to seek out a sense of structure or design within the music. And the simplest explanation for something is usually the one that makes the most sense to us. Now, there are many times where the instinct to hear things in the simplest possible way is good, but there are times where, once again, you will end up hearing things wrong. So let's take a look at some more challenging examples. A much more challenging way to reframe your listening perspective is, instead of using rhythmic displacement to change where in the measure you hear a melodic phrase, you want to change the values of the notes as far as their duration in relation to the underlying beat. You will often hear this called metric modulation, where you actually change the value of the notes and the underlying pulse and tempo, which in turn changes the value of the notes in relation to that beat, okay? If you originally heard the phrase as quarter notes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What if I wanted to hear this phrase as quarter note triplets at a different tempo and with a different feel? Okay, so. One triplet, three triplet, one triplet, three triplet, one triplet, three triplet, one triplet, three triplet, one. Now here's the weird thing about that, okay? When I put the harmonic context with a chord progression underneath this, it's very easy to hear this phrase in a new environment because I'm establishing a pulse that you hear the melody on top of, right? So one triplet, three triplet, one triplet, three triplet, one. Here's the weird thing, and this goes back to our ear wanting to hear the easiest possible interpretation of any piece of musical behavior. If I'm playing with that triplet feel with the chords underneath the melody, as soon as I stop playing, your ear, if you just hear the melody again by itself, your ear is going to revert to hearing the phrase again as just basic quarter notes, okay? Take a listen to what happens here. Now, if I stop playing, your ear goes back to hearing this as 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is all about training your ear once you know the new rhythmic framework that you are working with, okay? If I stop playing this chord accompaniment, can you still hear this timing of da 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 ba 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 ba? Huh? That's really challenging. Here's another really challenging example using this concept of metric modulation. If you initially heard this phrase as eighth notes, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Could we change our listening perspective to hear these notes as dotted eighth notes in 6/8 time? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, just like I mentioned with the other example of using metric modulation, it's easy to hear this as a 6/8 melody, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And when I'm providing the accompaniment, but just like with the previous example, what happens when I'm playing that accompaniment, okay? What happens when I stop strumming? Your ear is going to revert to hearing that as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But this is the whole point of these exercises. Train your ear to reframe a melody in different environments and in different contexts. As a teacher, I've encountered dozens of examples of songs that my students tend to hear wrong, like the drum beat intro to the song Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, or the beginning of Jimi Hendrix's version of All Along the Watchtower, okay? Both of those are songs that start on the and of beat 3, but if you don't know that, you are most likely going to end up hearing things wrong, okay? If you've got your own favorite example of a song that does this, go ahead and leave a comment below. Would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this lesson, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more lesson content like this. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.